So I am here in the 2019 Mazda MX-5 Miata, and for the rest of this video I'm just going to go ahead and call it Miata for short so I don't get tongue-tied every time I try to say the name. Now for 2019, the Miata gets a pretty significant refresh. So we're going to see changes to the features, changes to the available safety equipment, but most importantly there are big changes under the hood. Now we're going to give you a quick rundown of what to expect from the 2019 Miata on the feature side before we get to the real meat of this, which is those engine changes. So first of all, there is a brand new package for Grand Touring models, and that would be both the RF Grand Touring and the soft top Grand Touring, and it would be called the GTS package. And what it does is it takes the Go Fast parts from the Club and adds them to the GT package. So now you can get a luxurious Miata, or luxurious Miata as you would say, but also have the limited slip differential, the Bilstein shocks, and the reinforced shock towers that you would find on the Club vehicles.
You can also get those now on GT models if you want your GT to be a little bit more sporty.
Second big change is available safety equipment. So Mazda will now offer Smart City brake support, which is a fancy way of saying automatic forward emergency braking, as well as traffic sign recognition to the Miata. So add that on to blind spot warnings and lane departure warnings, and it gives the Miata a bit more of a comprehensive safety package. A backup camera is also now standard across all grade levels, and that's a welcome addition because with the top up, it's kind of hard to see out of the back of this car still. The final change that I want to call out is one that I personally really like.
I am a Miata owner myself. I own a 2001 Miata out of the ND generation, and this of course is the ND generation Miata.
And the Miata has actually never offered before a telescoping steering wheel. It would tilt up and down, but it would never actually go forward and back. So now, for the first time, the Miata is offering one for 2019, and the reason that they didn't want to do it before because it added weight, and because if you add a joint that goes this way, they say you lose some stiffness in the steering column. They actually found a way to reinforce the steering wheel, and they were okay with adding half a pound, so now we get a telescoping steering wheel, which makes it much easier to set a comfortable driving position, especially for someone like me who likes to sit far back, but I have these T-Rex arms, so I really need the wheel to come towards me to feel comfortable. Now for the good part, the engine changes. And by changes, I mean that in kind of a weird way. Mazda didn't really change up the engine too much. They didn't really bolt on any new parts, add a turbocharger or anything like that. They just made a series of little refinements that allow the engine to now take in more air, output more air, and run a bit more efficiently. And the total gain of that is an increase of 26 horsepower, which is pretty impressive without making a big kind of change to the engine. 26 horsepower might not seem like a lot. That actually bumps the total horsepower up to 181, and it bumps torque up a little bit as well to 151 pounds-feet. Again, that increase doesn't really sound like a lot. 26 horsepower, doesn't seem like it's going to do much. However, when you're talking about a car that's as light as the Miata, it makes a big difference. So right now, I'm in the Miata RF, and this is what you would call the heavyweight version of the Miata, and it comes in at 2,450 pounds with a manual transmission. 26 horsepower on a car that's this light, you're gonna feel a difference. And on the road, you definitely feel it, whether you're driving in a day-to-day situation like I'm in here in San Francisco, or if you're on a more curvy, fun road with hills and things like that. What I discovered over our 2-day trip from San Luis Obispo up here to San Francisco is that it makes it easier to drive hills, and it makes it easier to hold momentum when you're trying to have fun. So for example, in the old Miata, you used to really have to dip down into second anytime you hit an incline. It basically meant, uphill, I have to downshift. Now you can actually take those hills in third gear. You can actually, if you have enough momentum, kind of lean into the car, and it pulls much better from like 2,000 to 4,000 RPM.
Another engine change, Mazda has raised the redline back up to 7,500 RPM, and that lets you wind the engine out a little bit more. But to enhance that, they've also made the exhaust sound better. They redid some things on the muffler that makes it sound more full, and the Miata's engine now sounds better than any small displacement four-cylinder really has a right to. Put the top down, and it's really enjoyable to hear the engine sing.
Now, what I like about the changes to the engine is that they don't actually fundamentally change the car itself. It's still a Miata. It's still super fun to drive. The balance is great. You have excellent steering, and you just have now more horsepower to have fun with. And making the car faster without changing its nature is, I think, more difficult than people give them credit for, but kudos to Mazda here for adding power and adding fun to the Miata without really taking any out. Now, there's one final elephant in the room that we have to talk about the Miata, and that is its title as an affordable sports car. And I think that actually may be falling a bit by the wayside. So right now, I'm in the RF Club model, and this starts at around $32,000. But then you add on the BBS wheel, Brembo brake, and Recaro seat package, and then you add on the machine gray paint that it has, and all of a sudden the sticker price on this vehicle is $38,210, including destination. Now, at above $38,000, the Miata is playing against different competition. The sticker price on this car is higher than what you'd find on vehicles like the Honda Civic Type R and the Volkswagen Golf R, and those are cars that offer significantly more power and more capability. Is the Miata as fun to drive as them? Potentially, but it's definitely not as fast, and it's definitely not as practical. Me and my drive partner actually had to store our luggage in a different vehicle, and it kind of followed us up here on our drive up. So I'm a big fan of this Miata, but would I spend $38,000 on it? I'm not sure. Now, I'm a big fan of the changes to the 2019 Miata. I think adding power is kind of just what the car needed to make it really come alive. It'll be hard for me to go back and drive a 2018 or 2017 version of the car now and enjoy it just as much. Now, the good news for those who are interested in the Miata, if you want an RF version of the car, those will actually go on sale starting in August. While soft top versions haven't quite been announced yet, but pricing and availability for those should be available soon.